Let's go to Matthew chapter 6, verse 6. But you, when you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you plenty. And also Luke 10:38. Now it happened, as they went, that he entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she approached him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore tell her to help me. And Jesus answered and said, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many things. But one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen the good part, which will not be taken from her. Okay, we can start. I prayed about the class this morning. I had a good long meditation this morning. Came out around 11:30. And I just came out knowing what the class should be about, or what I think the class should be about. And I wrote it all out, and I realized I probably gave this talk about 3 weeks ago. But I think it matters. It's important because so Clyde used to say, you'd call him and something would be up and he'd say, yeah, it's raining outside. And he'd say, what do you mean? He'd say, well, it's raining outside. Everyone's calling with the same problem. And he noticed patterns like this, really common patterns. And I noticed the same thing. So one of the patterns is not everyone. So just if this isn't for you, just hang in there for the night, I guess. But a lot of people a number of people are having trouble praying right now. And, they were getting deep, they're not getting deep now. And it's kind of, it's not so uncommon. There's a few people missing, but there's quite a few people going through it. And I addressed it before, and I want to address it again if I can. And I want to give you just, first of all, what's the Christian answer to this? Well, it happens to everyone. Almost every single person goes through periods. Remember, I used to talk all the time about the desert experience, where you go into prayer and you cannot feel God's presence. And you might even have a period in your life where you can't feel God's presence. And that this is the Christian religion is a religion of the desert. And that there are periods of dryness in prayer and periods of dryness in your spirituality. And it's just the way it is. So the official Christian answer, what do you do if you're having trouble with prayer? They'd say, just keep doing it. That's it. That's the short answer. Just keep doing it and persevere. And I want to add some things that I see. So there's if it lasts a while, people can become frustrated. And I think I've witnessed in certain people a certain kind of giving up. See, the thing is, if you're having trouble in prayer, you're up against yourself, almost certainly. You're up against yourself. You could be, I told a friend of mine, I didn't tell her the whole story, but which I'll tell tonight. But I told a friend of mine that, I was doing, I don't know, I was going in for prayer at 10 at night, midnight, and not coming out till 8 in the morning for about a year there. I wouldn't have moved. My hands and feet were in the exact same position. I hadn't moved at all. I was really getting deep, all night. It would feel like no time had gone by. Then I told her, now it's been about an hour. I pop out. It's no fun. But I want to add to that story because there's something I've been experimenting with it. So, but what I want to say is it's common, and you guys, that you can't give up secretly. You're up against yourself. You're up against your ego. If you can't relax, if you can't let go, your nervous system is excited. There's a reason for that. And the reason needs to be discovered. It needs to be figured out. And that's inventory. So the first thing I want to say is that, there's a number of positions. There's a number of reasons I want to give. I guess I'll give one of them first, which is it's almost always associated with inventory that is not being done. That's what it is. This is just common knowledge in all prayer communities. If you're having consistent trouble praying and meditating, it's because you're in denial. And getting still sucks because you see and experience what you're not dealing with. That's almost always, it's not always what it is, but it is usually the problem. That if you're struggling with your prayer life, it's because you're running from something you don't want to see. You're not being fully honest with yourself. You're letting your mind swirl with problems that actually need resolved. They need to be addressed, and they need to be looked at. And there can be a point at which it's impossible to put them aside because they're demanding that they be addressed. So if that person was also slacking on their inventory, that could become a permanent state for that person. They could think, this is how my prayer life is. I just sit down and I'm inundated with worries and fears and prideful thoughts, and I'm buried by a swirling mass of thought. That is almost certainly inventory that's not being done. Almost certainly. So think of that as what's your first recourse? The first recourse is, look, it's normal. Everyone goes through periods that are hard for prayer. It's no big deal. But also then think, but am I not being thorough in my inventory? And a number of people have called recently, not just once. If it's you, don't think it's you. I'm talking about, and say, I want to share inventory, and they're sharing inventory that's not done. They're telling me their problems, a little bit of a journal. They haven't gotten down to fear, pride, jealousy. They haven't gotten down to what's wrong. So then, okay, that's undealt with psychological content. That process of self-examination and repentance and bringing our pain and suffering to God, unhooking our will from it, that is, if you don't do that, every time something comes up, then you get slowly buried by what comes up. And eventually there'll be enough that you can't still your mind. You just can't do it. So I really want to impress upon the community, people that are listening also, it is so important that you stay current on your self-examination. Because your meditation is bringing that content up. You're going into deep prayer. That means you're going to experience more psychological disturbances than someone who is not praying. It's almost the opposite of what, like, if you get online and like meditation for self-improvement, or I'll be able to, the best salesman, or I'll be a CEO in a year if I just meditate a half an hour a day, and visualize. Like, that's what they sell you online. But then you get around communities that actually do it and they laugh at that. That's funny. It's, yes, self-improvement, but not the kind you think. Certainly not the kind that just makes you look way better in the boardroom, right? Like that's not the kind of self-improvement it is, and you all know that. So it is self-improvement, but it's self-improvement. One of the reasons is by releasing the psychological content that we have walled away and we have neatly kept it put away. Meditation frees that to come up in your consciousness. If a person doesn't practice self-examination, they actually experience a worse state of mind than if they weren't meditating at all. So think about that. So there's a path forward through that, but self-examination and repentance, right? Unhooking our will from this pride, unhooking our will from this fear. It doesn't even mean that we have to be healed of it. I was talking to someone this week about the levels of relief that come from self-examination. If you're paying attention, if you just get it accurately and clearly put on paper, and you've not yet changed your heart about it, you've not had a change of heart, if you just get it accurately on paper, what's actually wrong, if you're paying attention, you will notice there is less chaos in your consciousness already. There's just less. It's like, oh, that's what it is. Instead of this swirl, right? First this issue, then this issue, and then this issue, and then that issue, and then this problem, and this worry, and this fear, and you chase it for hours, never once addressing any of it precisely. That is insanity, and meditation makes that worse. It makes it worse because it makes you vulnerable to all that content that normally you might be able to wall off through an active life, through a busy life. So think about that. So without that self-examination, you can have a worse state of mind than if you weren't meditating at all. It's just the way it is. And I learned that the hard way because meditation quickly healed a number of my issues. So I just sat in hope that it would heal all of them magically. And I waited way too long, stubbornly didn't listen to people saying, yeah, you got to look at that. I didn't look, and I just got worse and worse. What is so wrong with me? I didn't used to be this crazy. And that was true. But it was bringing those things up to be looked at. So be current with your self-examination. Once a week is okay. If you got a full-time job, I realize you can't just every day, have a 2-hour period of children. I understand life is busy. But at least once a week, it needs to be written, and we have to own, right? Like we have to own our problems. The danger without doing it is you beg God to heal you, God doesn't heal you, and you get mad, or frustrated, or turn to something other than God for relief. But that's all because you're not doing your work. That's why, right? So think of that as the main thing. Just, and look, let's say you're up against a difficult position. You're between a rock and a hard place. The rock is, I'm having a really hard time praying. And the hard place is, I want to stay in denial. That's possible. I mean, because I've been there, so I know that's possible. I've been in that exact place. I'm luckily not there presently, but I've been there as a state of being. I've been there. And what helped me a lot was to just say, okay, God, here's the thing. I'm in turmoil and suffering, and I don't want to get honest. I'm not willing. I'm not willing to be honest about it. But I'm willing to get there if you'll just bear with me and have patience with me. One day I know you could bring me to this place, and I promise you, I will be honest, but I'm not yet willing to be honest. And something about that honesty was authentic. So if I made that prayer to God, I would feel a connection. Even though I'm still a liar, I'm still practicing active denial. I don't want to see everything that's wrong with me. There was a point for me when it seemed like it was too much to bear to see it all. And I knew it. I mean, I knew it was a lie. I knew it wasn't true. I knew I was being dishonest. I knew I was in denial. But it just felt to me at that time, this is the best I've got, God. So I give you permission to free me, but just being honest with God about it made a connection. And sometimes would quiet things and I could get into prayer that way. And then I realized, because I'm a liar. I'm in there saying, God, I want you. I want to know you. And I realized that's a lie. I'm saying that, but minus all the consequences of knowing God. Like, I want you as long as you don't change me, transform me, challenge me, stretch me, break me. So then I just had to say, I had to be humble enough to just admit to myself. And I felt a burn. I remember the first time I did it, I felt a burn I don't know if you ever get a pride burn. But this burn of pride where you really feel it in your skin, this pride burn. And I just felt this burn just coming to truth and admitting I'm not a spiritual hero. I'm a liar and I won't change. And like, there's a part of me that saw myself as someone spiritual, and to just admit, dude, I'm a liar. I say I want you and I don't. That's the truth. That burned, but it brought also relief. So much relief. Okay. So that's one thing. There's 4 things I want to address. Because your prayer life is everything. It's everything. Now, this other one's funny. It's really interesting. I asked God, I noticed someone was in a certain state of mind where they just, they couldn't relax in prayer. They just couldn't relax. And no one gets to know who it was. They're probably not in this room. Just don't think, is he talking about me? Don't do that. Who cares who it is? But I noticed in somebody that they are generally speaking in a state of being that is opposed to prayer. They're just in their general state of being. They would tell me I have too much energy I sit down to meditate and nothing happens. I have too much energy. I just can't settle. I see the sun shining and I'm awake and I cannot then go into deep prayer. And I had never experienced that in my life, and I asked God, I would like to know what that is. I didn't think God was going to put me in that state of being. I just thought, I don't understand this. I'd like to understand it, and they gave it to me. And for about 2 weeks, I woke up so full of energy I couldn't meditate very well. And if I went outside, which I do, like I meditate in this one way before I take my daughter to school, but really my real meditation is when I get back. So I drive her to school and I get back. Well, I drive her to school, I can see the sun, and I would just feel like within a minute fully awake. And frankly, I'd never experienced this since I've been on the path, but I got it for 2 weeks. I let it go yesterday. I felt, that's 4 hours. I'm going to go meditate for 4 hours? Why don't I go do something productive? And I did. I'd walk for a couple hours, and I did all these things that were productive. I did stuff. I mean, I had already, by the way, meditated for 45 minutes before I took my daughter to school. But I just did stuff. But the thing is, I thought I started feeling shallower than I'm used to feeling spiritually. And I thought, whoa, I don't like how this feels. I do feel a shallowness. But I sit down to meditate and I couldn't get in. Just couldn't do it. So I remembered that I had asked to understand this thing. And I thought, oh my gosh, I caught it. Then I thought, well, what is it that I've caught? What have I caught? What did I catch? And I'm probably misusing the word, but because it's really about an assumption, but it doesn't matter. I caught an a priori assumption about life. I didn't have these, But it was like, as hard as I tried to get in deep meditation, fundamentally, I had an attachment to living that made that impossible. Just an attachment to living. I mean, activity living. And it was, by the way, walking my property for a couple hours. It was good stuff. It was good things. I didn't sit around. It was actually quite active. But I caught this a priori assumption. It wasn't worded. There wasn't language. But I caught it. And all of a sudden, 2 or 3 hours of meditation seemed like a waste of valuable time. And I had it, and I couldn't see it, and I thought, that's what it's like when people feel this. It's a state of consciousness. And it comes from a lack of a deeper commitment to the prayer life and to spirituality that is then perceived by that person as just the way it is. Just the way it is. And sure enough, I'd go in for 40 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and I'd just pop out. And the notion of going back in was just not going to happen. It just was not going to happen. And I let that go. So then today and last night, 3 hours, no problem. Where else would I want to be? Where else would I want to be? The house didn't burn down. I did double book somebody. I'm not saying it's perfectly roses. But I'm saying that I caught that state of consciousness that made more prayer impossible. And it's an a priori, it's a whole assumptive thing about life itself, about what's valuable. I wrote some things down because I never felt that way before, about needing to be productive. I just felt this, I got to be productive. I did a bunch of cool stuff, clean things, did a lot of walking. There's a couple other things I can't remember, but I caught that state of consciousness. And it put me in a more active place. And it made me Martha instead of Mary. It made me Martha instead of Mary. And I was no longer choosing the good part, the better part. I was choosing the world over depth. And so, it was about productivity. I noticed, but I'm not being productive. And then so today when I'm thinking about the class, I thought, really? So prayer isn't productive? So Christianity teaches us that prayer is the highest activity a human being is capable of. So of course, my evil mind would see it as not productive. Clearly, I'm more productive if I'm vacuuming my car. Clearly. It looks so clean. It's so clean. Everything is so clean. Look around me. It's perfect. That is not the best use of my time. Much better for that to go undone than for me to miss my prayer, a serious prayer life. So I realized that's just a state. It's not how that person is. It's many people, by the way. It's a state of consciousness. It's a general perception and belief about how life ought to be. And it did feel when I was in it about like activity felt like a full life. Being active felt like a full life when I was in that state of consciousness. And it felt meaningful to be busy. Just being busy felt so meaningful in that state of consciousness. But my spirituality became shallower. I didn't notice that nothing happened, but the last 2 days since I came back from it, the dreams are powerful. and songs in my mind when I come out of prayer, and meaningful spiritual notions, all of which come from hovering in that place longer. And also had to take my daughter to school today, and so I'm driving her, and I kept thinking, oh, I hope it doesn't come back. I hope I don't wake up so much that I know I can't go back and pray again. And it didn't come back. The whole time I thought, oh, and I wasn't afraid to look around and see the pretty park as I drove by. Because if I saw the park, it'd be like, I'm awake, I can't. It just would happen. It's like, that's it. I'm in the world now, and the world is mine. And by the way, I become more fluid. It used to be I went on vacation with my family and ruined it because I couldn't come out of that deep place. Now I allow that state of I use that when I'm on vacation. Just 45 minutes to an hour in the morning, maybe an hour and a half. If I'll get up at 3 or something, and just go. But then I'm ready to play. That's great for vacation, but it's not good for daily life, right? Unless I got to go to work, and then that's different. That's different. Got to go to work, but you have weekends, and you have days off. Okay, so there's an attachment also to the joy of living. The stage Teresa of Avila said should not exist. Right on the other side of stage 3. Life is great. It's so great. God's made life so great that you don't have time for God. Get the lights burning. It's kind of like my dad. Get up. Boy, it's crack of dawn, what are you sleeping in for? Do something. And he died a miserable death. It's not the answer. Okay. Okay, so, and I think I made that quite clear, I believe if I were in those people's shoes, without them hearing this, they would never guess this isn't really the way you are, it's just what you value. You would never guess it. You would just say, no, this is just how it is for me. And I would say, no, it's what you value, and that's how it is for you. Because I know how it is when I'm here now, and I have time, I don't have clients or something, so for a couple more hours, and I'm dropping off my daughter at school, I'm fully awake, might even had a half a decaf coffee or something, it's fine. And I just can't wait to get home and be in a dark room where the world falls away and have that sacred time to pray. But I've already prayed. That's just a state of consciousness based on what you value. So then you probably, if you're one of those people, you probably have conflicting values that have not gone fully examined. On the one hand, you want to be a saint and you want to ascend to this great place. And on the other hand, you have these competing values, probably from the world, about what life ought to look like. And you're doing both at the same time. And one is polluting the other. I lost my notes, man. I can't even find them. I could pause and find them maybe, but another one is attachment to sleep. And I'm not telling you that if you work full time to never get enough sleep. I'm not saying that. But there are no saints who didn't say sleep was an addiction and you should get less. None. And you're going to say, oh, Clinton, all over the internet, they never shut up about sleep and health. And I'll say, I know. Are any of them saints? Any of them? Even one? Have you found one saint talking like that? If you are totally and completely fully rested before your prayer life begins, you're probably not going to do a 2-hour stint really super deep. If you got to get every ounce of sleep first before you get up and then pray, you're probably not going to go very deep. So which one do you want more? Perfect sleep? Because, everyone says there's got to be the exact amount of REM, and you know all the stuff out there. It's like, my God, if you don't have a freaking watch monitoring everything, you might die. I mean, what did they do before we had watches telling us everything about ourselves? Like, what did people do? I think they all just died or something. And it's terrifying. What would we do without technology telling us what everything is and when it should be? It's like we're trying to turn our lives over to computers. And then the monks and nuns who become saints, who are levitating, bilocating, who've attained perfect love say, your sleep is an addiction. Get up and pray. But they're getting into these places because of it. They're getting that extra rest. But it's a other kind of rest. But I got to be productive, so that's not okay with me. And, the whole mess. World, world, world. I serve the world. And where is God? So Jesus tells Martha, 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 you are concerned about so many things. But really there's only need of one thing. And we think, is Jesus, did he not know about sleep? He didn't know. That guy, if we could go back in time, we'd really help him. We could tell him all about it. And it really changed his life to know about this. Come on, really? No way. No way. That's crazy to me. But then we live in that world. And then it becomes true because, they told me, the more sleep you get, the more sleep you need. That's what they told me. And I'm not saying don't sleep. I mean, I know it's got to be done by the Holy Spirit, but it isn't done by the Holy Spirit when you're checking your whatevers, on your thing. That's not the Holy Spirit, man. They didn't tell you to do that. That's not it. Right? That's not it. It's a flow you find. It's a way you find. There's cycles in it. The Holy Spirit, sometimes you sleep more, sometimes you sleep less. It works out when you're letting God lead you. And those cycles are really ruined by external measures you're supposed to take, according to the latest research. I'll take early dementia and sainthood over every ounce of sleep I'm supposed to get, and I live a long time and I'm a bum. I'll take it. And I don't think that's the choice, but frankly, if it was, I'd still take it. Okay, so then distraction by needed inventory. Let me pause. So the other big one is, and I think this can affect people who are sensitive energetically, but also everyone. And when let's say you go to the doctor and they're like, what are the stressors in your life? And someone's like, I don't really have much stress. And then, you find out they had a divorce like last year, and, there's like all these changes went on, and doctors are like, dude, that's a stressor. And you're like, still? How could it possibly be? So the point being, things stress us out. We don't know we're stressed out. Okay? This is what I'm trying to say. There are stressors in life that you would say, I feel perfectly calm. And then they take your blood pressure like, well, yeah, it's a little up. And you think, no, it's not up. I feel perfectly calm. Well, you're not. Okay, so environmental pressures, okay? And I want to say, I don't know exactly how to say it, but we're in the most tumultuous times anyone I know who is alive has ever experienced. It's the most divided times. Most of my friends are the next generation up. They're 65, pushing 70. They all say, to a man, every one of them, we have never been this divided in this country. Never. And I say, you were in the 60s. They say it is. It is so much worse than in the 60s. You have no idea. So we are in incredibly uncertain tumultuous times. And on top of that, things are changing so fast that it's every few days there's something in the news cycle that is ridiculous or scary or divisive. It is just unreal. And I do think that is affecting some people's prayer life. I do. And there's a couple different ways. One way is, it's just happening, and you're hearing it all the time. And here's what my friend said, who was in the 60s. He said, we were pretty divided in the 60s. He said, but we agreed on all of the facts. We only disagreed on what to do about them. So there was like discussion, and sometimes heated discussion, but we were at least discussing the same problems. That's what he said. And he said, right now, we don't even agree on the problems or the facts. And it's a schism unlike anyone I know who's alive has ever experienced. Okay, so that's real. That's happening. And you might say, I don't even read the news. I just avoid it. And I think that's a great strategy, by the way. But I think it can still affect you because it's in the air. And I think here's where it's sort of like, the more sensitive a person is, the more they're going to be affected by this divisive, chaotic energy that's going on. And maybe not know that it's not their problem. It's just noticing what's happening in the world. And then, so that's something you can learn to detach from if you see it. Say, oh, is this even mine? Because I know for me, it's like, I'll feel it and I'll go, what is this? And I'll get still, what the heck is going on here? And I'll think, is this mine? That's a great question to ask. Is this mine? And a lot of the times the answer will be no, it's not. I'm in polluted water. And I'm trying to inventory something that isn't even mine to inventory. And that's common when you guys know, if you ever have a demonic experience, if you ever get messed with, monkey business, as the monk called it, it's very helpful when you think, what? Am I really this messed up? Hold on a minute. What's going on here? And you go, oh my gosh, it's not me. And you tell them to get lost, and then instantly it changes. Well, that's a little bit how it can be when you're being affected by the environment, the way people are. There's just so much hatred and division and anger and denial everywhere you look. Just throw a rock, it's going on, And you can be tapping that and not realize it isn't yours. And then be trying to fix it. When it isn't yours to fix, it's yours to unhook from. And everyone has a different threshold. I stay pretty informed. I'm very interested. I've never been more interested in what's happening in the world than I am today. I believe we're in precarious times, unlike has happened in a very long time. Just the level of division, the way people are so quick to hate each other and argue with one another and not listen to one another. I don't like it. It looks like a marriage getting ready to end to me. That's what it looks like. You. Both sides say you. I don't like it at all. It makes me nervous. But you got to be sure you're not tapping into all that and not noticing what it is. You got to see what that is. And then the other way you're getting it is by exposing yourself to it. And you have to be humble. Like, you have to know the amount you can absorb without it ruining your prayer life. And if you're taking in more than what feeds your prayer life, you got to stop. And just don't do it. Because it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to solve it? What are you going to do? You can vote. You can forgive your cousin. What are you going to do, really? You can not hate people. You can love. But what are you going to do about it? So all this energy and time spent instead of in prayer, instead of in depth. It's not the way. It's not the way. And there's, I don't make a big thing out of demonic stuff. But if you don't think the demonic is involved in the level of division that's going on in this country, you are wrong. And they want everyone to fall into it in some way. And if it's stress, that's great. If it's anxiety, wonderful. Fear and hatred, yes. They want that, and they're feeding on it. So don't be a source of food for that. Don't feed it. So you can see, but don't join the emotion. Just don't join it. And if you're a person who can't see it without getting involved and depressed about it or whatever, stop seeing it. I've read plenty of articles over the years of people who consciously unplug. They say, look, I make the conscious decision to unplug. I don't want to know. I'm working on being a saint. That's what I want to be. Okay, just one more cause, okay? Possible cause. This is also happening, but it's not as big as I thought it was before now that I'm really paying attention to the community. It's missing the mark. So if God changes seasons on you, then you have forgotten to pray. You've forgotten how. Everything you did last week doesn't work if God changes seasons on you. So there's a hole for me, if I'm going to go deep, it's feels like a warm cloud comes around me, kind of feels a little heavy. Things feel warm and protected and heavy, and I just sink into this heavy feeling, and then I'm gone, don't know where I am, and I come back. That's how it is if that's the season God's shining on me. And so that feels like enclosed and warm and down and resting in God until I pass out or something. But when they don't shine that energy on me and I spend 20 minutes trying to feel like that or go that direction, I'm missing the mark. That's not where they're taking me, and I'm doing out of habit. All the responses I make to the power have now become a habit. And it's just something you do. So you're trying, and I can tell I'm doing it because I've been trying for 20 minutes. I'm trying, and I'm like, well, what am I trying for? Then I realize, I'm trying, and I'm probably trying to do something God isn't doing. So then I step back and say, whoa, Clinton, Peter, not my feet, not my whole body, just what are they really doing? And if you can unhook from that, a lot of times some new dimension of experience will open for you. It's different than what you're used to. And that's assuming you're being mature about it and trying not to get frustrated, self-incriminating, angry at God, mad about it. Try not to do all that, because that's just adding noise to noise. We just have to be humble. If I experience difficulty in prayer, I don't think, I've been doing this a long time, this shouldn't happen to me. I don't have those thoughts. I just think this is what is now. I'm ahead of where I was last year, but I'm in new terrain.